Welcome to Northwest Arkansas Investing Podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing in Northwest Arkansas.
Whether you're a seasoned investor just starting out, we bring you expert insights, market trends, and practical strategies to help you build wealth through real estate.
From buying and selling to property management and long-term investment planning, we cover it all so you can make smart, informed decisions in this fast-growing market. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to Northwest Arkansas Investing Podcast. I'm here with Mr. Brian Wagers. It's just him and I today, and we're going to chat a little
What's up,
bit.
man?
Yes, sir. We're going to do a few little short episodes, just kind of talking through some deals that we've done, deal deep dives. We're going to talk through pros and cons of short-term rental versus long-term rental. And then we've got some other really cool episodes that you'll have to tune into. But one that we wanted to hit on to start would be short-term rentals versus long-term rentals, the pros and cons, the advantages, and even some of the things that we're seeing in Northwest Arkansas and how it pertains to these topics right here. And so just to kick it off, Brian, short-term or long-term?
Man, that's way too broad. Also, I've been listening to us before we get into it, on Spotify versus Apple. And Spotify, you can just watch its video too.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I didn't appreciate that until now, because it was just so easy. You just click the purple thing on your Apple iPhone. But been checking out some other pods too lately.
I love that.
Not to stall for this answer, but short-term versus long-term. I mean, I'm a long-term rental guy. I think less turnover, more predictable, more sustainable, less regulation. Those are kind of my broad level.
Those are a lot of great points right there that I'd love to hit on, because it seems like short-term rental is the big craze right now, especially in some of those bigger markets, Austin, Phoenix, a lot of those other markets that you have a lot of tourist attraction. And for us in Northwest Arkansas, we do have tourist attraction with mountain biking. We have business travel with Walmart. But I think there are some things that folks should definitely pay attention to, pros and cons, I guess, if you will, for short-term rentals. And then we'll kind of get into a little bit of the long-term rentals and the pros and cons of that as well. But I think just things that I think make sense to think about with short-term rentals. Number one, obviously the income potential. So, just for an average look at it, if you have an apartment that can rent for $2,000 a month here in Northwest Arkansas, a lot of times those are in areas that are, close to downtown or close to trails or maybe even close to the university, stuff like that. And a lot of times you have the ability with a short-term rental to get upwards of $3,000, even $4,000 a month. And obviously things to take into consideration would be your expenses and what that looks like. You're really kind of running a business with a short-term rental, but any thoughts on that or?
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah. So there isn't just, people think short-term rentals are just automatically hop to Airbnbs. There is other avenues where you can have furnished units and people will pay a premium for that. And maybe they're in between jobs, maybe they're in between homes, maybe they're just on work relocation and temporary. Maybe they're not ready to buy their first time, so they'll pay a premium to have a furnished unit. I think it's a good option. I was a partner on the deal in Northwest Arkansas, large multifamily deal where we bought it, and four of the apartments were kind of furnished short 3 to 6 month leases, and it was like for traveling nurses. It was pretty popular for them, and they would pay normal rent $1,600. They were paying $2,300 for that premium. So but there's a whole different, their staging, the Airbnb game has been like, every part of it has been monopolized. People who will buy the furniture for you and stage it, which can help. That's where the previous owner was, but we actually just paid our property managers to go buy some nice couches, nice furniture. I probably wouldn't. I have terrible design. I'm not good at interior design, but we had someone on the team do that. So I think there's I don't know. You'd have to see what the delta is, if it makes sense, if it's worth the extra headache, if it's worth the extra wear and tear. Right. For some of the larger deals, the lenders won't let you do more than 20% for regulations there. I guess screening tenants, wear and tear. how that affects other residents there. But even, I don't know, Airbnbs, I'm not even a fan of like if I'm gonna have a house in Florida, I don't want other people I don't want other people living in it. One, and I understand you're making some money back, but I would also rather just go to a different town and go to a different beach town every time I'm going somewhere, not be tied to one spot. So on if I can't get it behind on that connection, then but on the other token, there's people that are killing it in Airbnb. There's people that are, making millions of dollars a year in Airbnb, locally, nationally. I know you represent a lot of investors that's all they do.
Yes,
Airbnbs.
exactly.
And that's, you talked about nationally, it's big, Northwest Arkansas, it's only going to grow, like Beaver Lake, that to me makes the most sense, but obviously Fayetteville kills it during school year. Like if you have a short-term rental, you have alumni coming back in Fayetteville and visiting those. And I know some of those kill it, but the devil advocate on that, what about when U of A is not doing as good, or what about during off-season, like summers, where there's nothing going on. So you have to fill that, like account for that. And then my other big thing is the legislation, in other markets more than Northwest Arkansas, where they could say, hey, your neighbors don't like the short-term rentals. They think it causes more problems. And it was actually, I don't know if it was one of the local municipalities. It was just voted on, but it did not go. They wanted to like limit short-term rentals or something like that, or not completely, but they said no, like there was no limits or anything like that, but it got brought up. So,
absolutely.
In other markets you've seen where.
I think if you think about markets like Northwest Arkansas, where we still have a really big housing shortage for the most part, a lot of that kind of legislation seems like it starts to pop up. And so Fayetteville specifically, one of the biggest markets for the housing crisis, if you will, has put in regulations to where you aren't able to do. They have a cap on how many Airbnb licenses there are out there at a certain time. I don't know exactly what that cap is. I'd encourage listeners to look into that a little bit. But they are all full, and there is a waiting list from what I understand. And the only way to get one is if someone drops out, which is nowadays it's kind of becoming a premium, and it can be transferred with the sale of a property. And so I had a client that just purchased a property, and they were able to inherit that Airbnb license and have that value there. And so, I think just as you're talking about that though too, we look at these other cities. I mean, in Bentonville, there are hotels popping up everywhere, downtown, near the campus, on the campus, and in other spots like that. And the Waltons are really a part of pressing that, because we really don't have enough housing for folks that want to come in and tour the area. And so they're really addressing those problems. But what if the Waltons wanted to push and say no Airbnbs in Bentonville too, or we're capping them in Bentonville? Then we have, if you're betting your whole portfolio on Airbnbs in Bentonville, you're going to run into an issue there potentially. And
I think that's something we haven't really talked a lot about on the podcast. Is the tourism industry is just going to be growing so substantial. It's already, because there is so many other big industries here. Tourism isn't as talked, but like the hospitality industry is going to continue to grow. The more Alice pours into Bentonville and these outside projects, Crystal Bridges obviously is a big one. The mountain biking scene, when Bella Vista's, mountain biking course is open, that's going to increase tourism. University of Arkansas is a fast growing SEC school. Go Cats, but I still support a SEC, another school, as long as we're not playing each other. And we'd love to see the local, Fayetteville's economy does a little bit better when the Hogs are playing.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
I think there's always going to be a need for, like in Northwest Arkansas, there is going to be a need for that hospitality. Yeah. Like you said, you see hotels coming up. So I think legislation would be kind of careful to limit that, because it's a need, like it's almost a need to have that, to support tour. Like if you want good tourism, you're going to have support short-term rental. There's people out there, I'm a hotel guy too. I like the points. I like waking up to a fresh bed made every day, and
absolutely
like the room service. But again, you have some people are all Airbnbs. They want the whole spot to themselves. So I think like we saw the one legislation, it didn't go through, but I think NWA is in a good spot to not be, but that's something you have to be cautious about.
Yeah, agreed. You have to know the local regulations. You have to know if an area that you're buying for Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, the HOA allows for it. All these things we would encourage y'all to look into. But again, hitting on a little bit of that tourism piece, even from 2023 to 2024, airport traffic was up almost 20% in Northwest Arkansas. We're seeing these huge expansions at XNA. And so as we continue they add flights and maybe add airlines with Southwest, hopefully at some point, you're going to continue to see tourism come in, and there is going to be a need. And then again, with the healthcare expansion in Northwest Arkansas, travel nurses haven't historically been a big thing for Northwest Arkansas, but they will continue to be as we continue to add in the healthcare space and the things that Alice Walden is doing. So
yeah,
I think that's pretty cool.
I like how you talk about XNA expand. Breeze is like blowing up, blowing up, but they just added a direct flight to Pensacola.
Yeah, I saw that. But again, just finishing off on the short-term rental piece, we would encourage everyone to kind of make sure you know your local regulations, make sure you know the best areas that Airbnb is doing the best in. So there's sites called AirDNA and some other resources out there that you can use as you're underwriting properties in Northwest Arkansas to figure out what does occupancy look like for this area, what do the average rents look like for this area, and start to underwrite it from there. But I think overall, Airbnb can really, for the most part, there's Airbnb management companies out there, but that is a business more than long-term rentals can be for the most part, in my opinion. And so just would encourage you guys to look a little bit further there. But
yeah, if you're in the single family space, I think maybe it makes sense to look at it. If you're in commercial, probably not, unless it's for personal reasons or, it's we had a previous guest, Henry Washington. He has some Airbnbs.
Yeah,
he talked about a case study where, not on the podcast, but he had a long-term rental that wasn't doing that great, but the short-term, selling it, he might not have got what he wanted it, or refinancing it, same thing, but the short-term rental market was pretty good in that area. So he's like ponied up some extra money to get it staged, and he got a pretty good premium. So
exactly. And then again, going back to what you mentioned on kind of furnished rentals, like Furnished Finder is also another website out there similar to Airbnb, but it fits that midterm rental type of category. And so that's really over 30-day rentals. So maybe it's 1 month or 3 months or 6 months for traveling nurses or people coming in town for this or that, or they're relocating and need a place in the interim. I've got some clients that utilize that and do really well. And so take a look at Furnished Finder, great website that you can kind of see how much demand is in your area and how much supply as well. And if there is a big gap there and a big need, that might be an avenue that you look at as well. But I want to transition a little bit to long-term rentals with these last few minutes. And you and I both, I think, are in the boat of long-term rentals is kind of our play and what we like to do and what we underwrite for, and how we kind of want to build our real estate portfolio. But for you, what do you see as some of the biggest pros of long-term rentals?
Yeah, I think the wear and tear is a big one. The predictability is big, not just legislative, but knowing where your income is coming from, knowing that there's not huge swings, having some level of predictability there. The management side of it, not managing someone every couple of days, not paying the extra. There's a lot of fees. There's a lot of managing the furniture. It's almost a different, business within real estate. I think there is the case for short-term rentals for, maybe you have a 100-unit apartment and 10 of those you offer, 9-month options or 6-month options. You don't even have to furnish it, but you pay a higher premium.
Yeah.
Some of those midterm rents, and then you could have the option of furnishing one, but long-term, people are always going to need a place to live. People aren't always going to need to travel.
Yeah. That's a great point.
So I think that's why I got into real estate in the first place, because of its resilience, not only the profitability, but protecting your downside.
Right.
too.
That's a great point. Yeah. When you think about trying to protect your investment and make good, strong investments long term, it's hard to beat what long term rentals can do for you and the stability that it can provide. Recession proof, really. I mean, when you look at it, the only areas where I see that would not be recession resistant would be, in these more luxury apartments, right, that are well above the average rent in your area. And so I think as you look at long-term rentals and kind of what you want to underwrite for, as long as you have, if you have, a deal that is around or under the average rent in your area, a lot of times you're going to be, for the most part, recession resistant, in my opinion.
Yeah, nothing's recession. You got to be careful. Not recession proof, recession resilient, even. That can take it. I think just looking back at case that there wasn't really short-term rentals in past recessions. You could maybe you could track like hospitality. It does. Right. I'd say that's more correlated. Short-term rentals is than to hotels than it is to long-term rentals. I think that I heard someone talking about boutique hotels being a strategy now too, because of the short-term rental disruption in some of these markets, that buying a boutique hotel is an option. But it's for me, long-term rental, long-term is 12 months. That's not, maybe you do. And on the other token, some people offer discount, sign a 13-month lease and we'll give you your first month free. And you're in for 13 months. So you have that 12 months. So there's on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think those are some great points. I think looking at some of the cons of long-term rentals versus short-term rentals, a lot of times, I mean, you don't obviously have that upside with the rental potential and the income potential. Some other things I think that are, interesting to think about as well are obviously as delinquencies happen and rents get behind in some areas, it's kind of inevitable as you start to grow your portfolio. You will have people that inevitably maybe won't pay. If you're in the game long enough, I think that's fair to say. And so non-payments, damages of the property, eviction issues that you could be having, like you don't have to worry about evictions with a short-term rental, and kind of the complexities that come with that and the attorney's fees that get involved, things like that. More things like less flexibility, so you're locked in kind of on rents and where you're going to be for at least a year typically. And I would even say, going back to kind of the wear and tear of a short-term rental, a lot of people probably would argue that short-term rentals are able to be kept in better shape because they're being cleaned, either nightly or multiple times a week or whatever. Whereas, a typical long-term rental, someone's likely not getting a cleaner each week. So I think those are some things there. I think the other con of it would be, and this would be really a con for both sides of it, but market competition. So, you really have to pay attention to that either way, whether there's hotels popping up, more Airbnbs popping up on the short-term side, or if you're in a market where you've got multiple apartment complexes being built around you and you're kind of sandwiched in an area that maybe it's not getting absorbed as quickly. And so not necessarily a con only for long-term rentals, but definitely something to think about on both sides.
For me in multifamily, I think I can underwrite and I can account for what happens if we have a dip in vacant, what happens if it goes from 100% occupied to 80% occupied or 90%. For Airbnb, I can't underwrite what happens if they change the law where they don't do Airbnb. How do you underwrite that?
If they shut the well off.
Yes, so that's one thought there.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think just as we wrap up, I think it's important just to understand a lot of the legality in the legislation that is coming about in Northwest Arkansas when it comes to short-term rentals, what hotels are popping up and who's kind of leading the charge there. But even on the other side of that, kind of the advantages of short-term rentals and the need that we have for it right now in Northwest Arkansas, and especially in those areas like Bentonville or close to trails, or in Fayetteville, close to the university. And then on the other side of that, the advantages of long-term rentals and the stability that comes with that, the recession resistance of it, and then really just being able to kind of model what that looks like long term. I think there's a lot of advantages on both sides, and those are things that there's a lot of need for in Northwest Arkansas on both sides, and for us to figure out kind of what makes sense for a long term growth strategy. It's kind of up to each investor. So any other thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, that sums it up pretty well. There's a lot of ways to make money in real estate investing. Part of the reason why we have this podcast to talk to people who are doing it in a bunch of different ways. We're doing it in different ways. So there's not one right or wrong way.
Absolutely. Love it. Well, thanks for listening, and looking forward to our next episode. We're going to dive into a few deals, and we'll see you guys soon.
See ya.
See you guys.
Again, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and list some sponsors off here. We're going to start with Flat Branch Mortgage, specifically Colton Kennedy. Colton and I personally do business together, and he's a wonderful lender here in the Northwest Arkansas corridor. Want to invest in real estate or purchase a home, but feel like you need a secret decoder ring to understand the process? You're not alone. First-time investors, house hackers, and future homeowners, Colton Kennedy has you covered. Colton Kennedy with Flat Branch Home Loans helps people like you break into the real estate market without the guesswork. Think of him as your mortgage strategist, helping you turn "I wish I could" into "I just did." You bring the vision, he'll bring the lending game plan. Let's make your first investment a smart one. Colton Kennedy with Flat Branch Home Loans. Contact him today by calling 417-437-0086 or emailing C as in cat, K as in Kimberly, ENNEDY at Flat Branch Home Loans. That's FBHL.com. That's 417-437-0086 or emailing CKENNEDY at FBHL.com. Thank you so much, Colton. So our next sponsorship is 1440 Photography. 1440 Photography is a local company here. I love getting local companies to sponsor this podcast. They're local. They do great service, and personally, I can speak that they do a great job on mine and my clients' stuff. If you're an investor or agent in Northwest Arkansas, you need 1440 Real Estate Media in your corner. They're not just photographers. They're real estate market experts, and it's the only thing they do. MLS photos, drone, video, Matterport, whatever your listing needs, they've got it. Everything is a la carte, and it's totally customizable. And here's the best part. Just book online whenever works for you. They confirm and show up ready to go. Fast, easy, done. Where quality meets speed. Book now at 1440photography.com. Our next sponsor is Advantage Title and Escrow. They're a local company. They do great work. Specifically, Kayla Phillips. I can speak personally on this sponsor because I use Kayla for all of my transactions. It's been 2, 3, 4 years now, and Kayla and I have done a ton of deals. We probably do between 65 to 80 deals a year together, and they do a great job. The SOPs, so systems and processing that they have over Advantage Title, is just incredible. Clients love it. They do a great job from start to end communicating. When I give a deal to Advantage Title and Escrow, I know that it's going to be taken care of. There's no second guessing. I almost am able to treat them like a second transaction coordinator to my transaction coordinator that I already have. I know that they're going to handle the systems and processes correctly. As an agent, as a homeowner, as a buyer or seller, they do an incredible job of handling a transaction and communicating throughout the process. They do a great job with communication, especially Kayla Phillips over there. I would highly encourage you, if you're looking to close on a home, buy a home, if you're an agent listening, to use Advantage Title and Escrow, specifically Kayla Phillips. So you're going to reach Kayla best at 501-358-1601, or you can email her, Kayla, Cayla, at goadvantagetitle.com. Advantage is ADVANTAGE title.com. Our next sponsor is TDSIT. That's T as in Tim, D as in document, S as in solution, I as in information, T as in technology. This one hits personal. It's close to home. My dad, Tim Stanley, runs TDSIT, and he decided to sponsor our podcast. So I can speak from personal experience. I've been able to work for my dad in the past as well. And they're a great solution for business technology. If you're a local business owner or even out of state, if you're running a business, need printers, need information IT services, if you need phones, scanners, printers, all the way up to, you're printing books to, hey, we just need something in the office. TDS IT is that spot. They provide the best in-brand business technology with proven, best in local service, and they can prove it. Our next sponsor is from Whinstone Private Lending. This episode is brought to you by Whinstone Private Lending, one of the top private and hard money lenders now serving Northwest Arkansas. Whether you need short-term capital for a flip, a bridge loan, or creative financing, they've got you covered with very flexible products to fit nearly any deal, including 100% financing. What sets them apart is their deep expertise, fast response times, and ability to think outside of the box to help investors like us close quickly and efficiently. If you're looking for a real lending partner, check out Whinstone Private Lending. Link is in the show notes.
Special thanks to one of our sponsors who I've worked with personally on multifamily commercial loans as well as business acquisitions. People's Bank works with entrepreneurs, investors, deal makers, and risk takers. They're the ones who see opportunities where others see obstacles. Whether it's a vacant lot with a plan for a thriving business or making an old space new, they work with creators who think big and are not satisfied with the status quo. People's Bank helps you build Arkansas deal by deal and brick by brick. They don't just see numbers on a spreadsheet. They see your passion and vision. People's Bank. It's where people come first. Member FDIC. If you're needing loan assistance, reach out to Dakota at 870-883-1706 or DHEDDEN at peoplesbankar.com.
If you enjoyed the show, make sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an update.
Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for more real estate insights and behind-the-scenes content.
Have a question you want us to cover? Send it our way. And if you're interested in sponsoring the show, visit nwainvesting.com to get in touch. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.